Hey guys, it's Charlene. Today I'm going to share with you how to make this beautiful card, and we're going to talk about a fun technique. It's called Emboss Resist. So what you want to do is you want to start out with a background stamp, and you're going to get your cardstock and put some anti-static powder down. And I am using the Oh Baby Baby background stamp. This is great for baby cards. It's got the alphabet, but it's also great for young children's birthdays, lots of different stuff. So next you're going to put some embossing ink onto your background stamp, particularly if your stamp has lots of tiny little letters or shapes. You want to take your time here and make sure that you get embossing ink on every part of that background stamp. Once you have that done, you can close it up and be careful going over all of the spots. You really want to make sure that embossing ink transfers all over the background, especially when you're using this kind of detailed stamp. So I like to go very slow, back and forth, applying pressure with my thumb. You also could use a pressure tool to accomplish this. I wanted to really make sure all of those letters were transferred in embossing ink. So just to be safe, I brought in my pressure tool as well. Once I was certain I got all of that ink transferred over, I can go ahead and slowly lift up the stamp. And now I'm going to put down some white embossing powder. Now it's your choice. You could use white embossing powder or you could use clear embossing powder to do this. They both give a slightly different look, but overall largely look the same. So either one's going to work. And then I'm just going to tap the side of my paper and the back until I get that excess embossing powder off of there. And now I can come in with my heat gun and melt all of the embossing powder. Again, slow and steady. This is how you accomplish a really large background stamp like this with embossing powder. You've got to take your time. So I'm going over each and every spot, making sure I get that embossing powder nice and melted. Now, a good way to make sure you are melting all of that embossing powder is to turn your paper back and forth in front of a light. If the embossing powder is melted, you're going to get some shiny reflection from the light. If it's not melted, it's still going to appear dull and flat. So I suggest going ahead and doing the whole process of melting the embossing powder and then really taking some time and turning your piece in the light to make sure that you have melted every little spot. If you haven't, you can always go back in with your heat gun and make sure you hit any spots that you missed. But once you get everything nice and melted, you could also run your heat gun on the back. That helps as well. It helps to sort of straighten out the paper if it has warped at all from that heat. And then you can move on to the fun part, which is kind of magical, I think, where you come in with your inks. I recommend using water-based dye inks for this technique. I'm starting out with kind of a peachy color. It's a little reddish, yellowish color. And next I'm going to come in with more of a true yellow. So that way when I overlap the yellow here on top of that first color, it's going to give me a little bit more of an orangey color. So this is a very light pastel colored rainbow. The next color I'm coming in with is aqua, and so that's going to give me some blue, and as I overlap it up onto the yellow, it's going to give me some green. So you just want to take your time, put several light coats of ink on here, and work on blending each of the colors together, and that's going to give you this beautiful pastel rainbow. Once you are all done, use a microfiber cloth or a tissue and you can wipe off any of the excess ink that is sitting on top of that melted embossing powder. This is really going to bring that white embossing powder back to life, and it's going to make an amazing background for your card. I'm going to be using the brand new Animal Crackers Kind Messages stamps and dies. These are so cute. I love that there's lots of different sentiments, so it doesn't have to be just for a baby card. You can use it for lots of different kinds of cards. I'm stamping this out with some black hybrid ink. Now, I love hybrid ink because you can use it for all kinds of different mediums. You can use it for alcohol marker coloring or watercoloring. It's very versatile. So I'm going to go through, and I've sped up the coloring here, but I'm going to talk you through a little bit about what I'm doing. For my lion, I'm using some Y35, Y38, E35, and E08. So I know those are generally not the kind of colors you'd put together for a lion, but once you blend in that kind of reddish brown and the brown with the orange colors, especially on the mane, it really gives a lot of depth and dimension to your little critter. So I definitely recommend trying out some reddish browns and some browns in your animals. I think it adds a lot. For the bear, I'm going to come in with some E31, E35, and E37. Now, coloring large animals can be a little bit tricky. My recommendation when you are coloring larger animals is to actually go ahead and start out with your lightest color, color the entire image, and then add some of your darker brown, and then you can go back and work your way over everything. And you'll see here I only have 2 colors out right now, and that's because originally I had actually started just with the E35 and E37, and then once I was all finished, I felt like I needed to add a lighter color in. I felt like there wasn't enough highlights going on with the bear, so I went back in the areas that were kind of lighter and I ran over those again with E31. So there you go. You can see me bringing in that E31 right now, and it kind of lightens everything up a little bit. It's just a personal preference depending on what you want your critters to look like. For my giraffe, I'm going to be using a lot of different yellows. I'm going to use some Y15, Y17, Y35, and Y38. I'm also going to bring in some E37. So you can see I have the highlight on the giraffe kind of towards the center of his neck as well as towards the center of his face. And then his little muzzle there, that's where those darker yellows are coming in. That's where the Y35 and Y38 came in. For my little bunny, I just did some light shading in W0. I did come back though and add some W1 later because I felt like it needed a little bit more. For the cute piggy, I did R000 and then R20. These are very light pink shades and I feel like they work really well for piggies. Then for my kitty, I came in here and made it a tabby cat, and I used YR15, YR16, and E08, and I just focused on putting those darker colors where the stripes are on the kitty cat. Once I finished the kitty, I could come in and do the penguin. Not a whole lot going on with the penguin, just some W0 for shading, some Y15 for the feet, and then YR04 for the nose. Now I've moved on to my calico kitty here and my gray kitty. Those, again, not a lot going on. The gray kitty, I used W3, W5, and W7. The calico kitty, I used W0, E25, and YR23. For the gray dog, it was W3 and W5 and W7. I really like those warm grays when I'm making critters the color gray. And then for the little monkey, we've got some E21, E25, and E29. So just making sure to do the little face a little bit lighter, as well as the hands, and then the rest of the body, I came in with those darker browns. Next, I can go ahead and cut everything out with the coordinating die, and now I can heat emboss my sentiment on some black cardstock. Again, just putting down some anti-static powder tool, and then I'm going to stamp with embossing ink. And then I can use my heat gun to melt some white embossing powder. This is a really nice contrast for a sentiment, so I like to use white embossing powder on black cardstock quite frequently in my cards. And you can see I cut down our beautiful resist technique background piece there, and I kept the extra scrap so that way I could go ahead and put that strip along the inside of the card. I oftentimes like to keep my scraps from anything I'm cutting down and see if I can somehow use it in my card. I feel like that helps to tie the inside of the card to the outside of the card and make the whole enjoyable card experience kind of seamless and last a little bit longer. So I've glued down our background piece there. Now I have a piece of the Picket Fence foam roll that I have die cut with the same die that I used to cut out the animal crackers here. And so I can just stick my colored image right on top of that die cut piece of adhesive foam. Then I can remove the backing and adhere it right onto my card. This makes it so easy to get a lot of dimension on your card quickly. I'm doing the same thing for my sentiment. I die cut off camera a piece of black adhesive foam from Picket Fence, and I have put my die cut little sentiment there on top of the foam, and then I can stick the whole thing on top of my card as well. Last but not least, we need to add some bling, so I'm coming in with some of my favorite sequins. This is the Iridescent Moonshine sequin mix. I find that this works really well on lots of different cards. It tends to pick up the color around the sequin, so it's shiny and picks up different colors when you turn it in the light. So pretty. All right, guys, that is my finished card. I hope you picked up some tips and tricks today. Please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell so that you will know about future YouTube videos here on the Picket Fence Studios channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.